Welcome to Robert Pears Photography. This is Robert Pears. In this lesson, we're going to go over some general tips that will help you taking better pictures and better videography. I really hope you enjoy this. What we've put together here is a series of simple steps that I think will help you take better pictures. They have been gathered together over a lot of experience. They say the first 20,000 pictures are your worst. I sometimes think the first 50 or 100,000 pictures are your worst. And some of the lessons I've learned, I've tried to put together in this presentation, and I hope it will help you so that maybe the first 1,000 of your pictures are your worst. So some of the subjects we'll talk about is head space, feet space, thinking prints, space for the person to walk into, the point of focus, double take, how to frame your picture, mild midtones, taking long exposures, fireworks, creating a beautiful bokeh, reflections, and changing the angle. I think these will really help you in taking more creative and better pictures. Again, these are tips that we have learned over many, many years through experience, and I think if you think about them, they're very simple, and apply them, you will find they will really help you take better pictures. And as I said, you don't have to wait to do 20,000 of your worst pictures. You can simply do 1,000, really start taking much better pictures quicker. So let's start by talking about headspace. This is one that a lot of time people forget about, and it's important both for photography and videography, is leaving room above the head. And you want to be careful that you don't leave too much room, but you want a picture that has some room above the head. And we'll talk a little about printing later on. But as you think about this, remember the rules of composition, the rule of thirds, and placing the person. And if you place them correctly, there should be space above the head that allows a much more pleasing image and picture. So just leave a little bit of space above the head, not too much, not too little. Another common mistake I see is people cut off the feet. And so either they don't give enough room for the head and leave some head space, or they cut off the feet. So I call this feet space. So leave some room around the feet as well. Don't cut off the feet. So as you look in your viewfinder or in the screen, look at the picture, look where the feet are, look at the head, and just give a little bit of space on either end. When you think about head space or feet space, one of the more important reasons why you want to do that is what I'll refer to as thinking prints. You're going to print this picture, or a lot of people may want to print the picture, and the ratios of typical prints are not the same ratio as the actual sensor, so the picture itself will need to be cropped, and when you crop it, you will lose. So in the first image I've given here is a typical crop. You see that I actually start to lose a lot of the hair and the face. By giving a little more space around the head, around the feet, you can prevent that being lost when it's cropped. Plus, I've discovered that customers don't like to see the head cut off. Now, I'm going to step back here because sometimes in videography or in photography, you want a very intimate shot, and so you're zoomed in. You may have like the bride and groom together, in which case the groom's head may be cut off a little bit on the top because the center focus is on her and we're capturing an intimate moment, and that is okay. Never cut off the chin or the bottom part of the face. You can cut off part of the top part of the face if you're trying to get in for a very intimate moment. In that situation, that is okay. So let's look at another common mistake, and I call this space to walk. And as you look at this picture, both these images, whether you're doing videography or photography, it's important to leave space for the people or subjects to walk into. It just looks out of balance if you take a picture so it's cropped, so they're basically walking off the screen. So you can imagine the next moment they're going to be off the screen. If it's done right, the next few moments they're going to remain on the screen, so you feel like you're part of the action. You're not like at the last second of the action about to miss it. So just again, leave a little bit of room for the subjects to walk into if they are walking. Controlling the center focus is, in my mind, extremely important. It's very easy to fall into the danger of letting the camera control that center focus by giving it such a broad range and let everything go into automatic mode. In this situation, you have a couple kissing and the center focus is the face. If I allow the camera a broad range of focus points and say just work out where you want to focus, it focuses on that which is closest, in which case it's going to go for the shoulder or part of the body. And it's what can often happen, I often see, is that the face blurs into the background. And so the actual point of focus in this picture is not where you want it to be. So I want to encourage you to take time to learn how to very quickly move in your camera the point of focus, the little red dots, so you can control and have the camera focus on where you want it to be, which in this case would be the face. Typically in a picture of people, you want the face to be in focus and ideally the eye. Now I know there are creative situations where that may be different, but as a general rule, and by learning to very quickly control the point of focus, you will get better pictures. With digital photography, I find it is very important to make sure you do a double take of critical moments. It is so easy to delete that it's well worth doing. Because if you have a critical moment that you're taking, for example, first kiss or some great magical moment, you may look at your small LCD screen on the camera and say, it looks good, but that is such a small screen. You don't know if you've got the focus point where you want, if the image actually isn't focused, or if there's not something else going on there. By double taking, and then sometimes triple taking, you have a better chance of getting that picture, the one you want, perfect. So I encourage you with critical pictures, take again, and sometimes take a third time. It takes a couple extra seconds, but take it. It can prove to be worthwhile. I cannot tell you how many times I've got home and said, wow, that's a great picture. And I'm grateful I double took it because the first one didn't come out or didn't have it the way I wanted. So just double take. It's better to be safe than sorry. When we say frame your picture, we're not talking about actually going out and buying a frame and putting a frame on or making your own frame. We're talking about using the background correctly to frame the subject or the main object of the picture. So in this one, we have used the buildings and the street to frame this picture. Again, it could be trees, it could be other things, and you use them to frame it. For example, with a wedding picture, we may put the bride in the center and have the bridal parties on the side and use them to frame this image so that your eyes are drawn to the point of focus or the main subject. And so again, just using objects or people or something to frame the main subject. This one I consider very, very important. A lot of time I've seen people take pictures and they either underexpose, overexpose. When we do wedding photography, a lot of time people come to me and I don't understand why my pictures are so dark or they're so bright. I just can't get it right. And for example, in a wedding picture, a lot of time they'll focus on the dress and the dress is white. Or they'll focus on something dark and it's black. And they don't understand why is it not getting the exposure correctly. Well, it's important to remember a grid. And if you are focusing on something that is white, white basically emits all light, so it is bouncing back all this light. So the camera is fooled into thinking that things are brighter than they actually are. Black, on the other hand, absorbs all light, so the camera is fooled into thinking that it is darker. So if I focus on something that's very bright or white, the camera will actually underexpose the image. If I focus on something very dark, the camera will overexpose the image. So you want to find something of a mid-tone and try to meter or expose. So when you set the red dot for the point of focus, if you set it on a mid-tone, let's say you're going for the face. A lot of time the face is a good mid-tone, but the face are very, very white skin, for example, or very dark skin. You can look for something at that same plane or level that is more mid-tone and focus on that. And the camera will then expose correctly. So just make sure you, again, meter on something of a mid-tone and not something that's too bright or white or something that's too dark, so you get the exposure correctly. If you've never tried taking long exposures, I want to encourage you to do so because you can get some great pictures. For example, nighttime cityscapes, long exposures, beautiful. Or you can take a downtown city picture and do a long exposure so the people blur out, but the buildings remain perfectly in focus. So how do you do this? Well, let's start with something at nighttime. You will need a tripod. In both situations, you need a tripod. Any long exposure, you're going to need a tripod because you cannot hold the camera long enough, stable enough. A typical rule of thumb in terms of holding a camera is that you need a shutter speed as fast as the focal length. So if you're using 100 millimeter, you need a shutter speed of at least 1/100th of a second to overcome the movement of your hands. So there's no way with a long exposure you can handhold it. You need a tripod. You would set, for example, an image at nighttime, set the ISO at 200. Why not higher? Because I want it to be a high resolution quality image. I then set the f-stop as high as I can, so let's say 20. I then let the camera, and ideally have a remote for taking this, and I let it take a picture. And for example, this nighttime scene is going to take about 30 seconds for the camera to actually take it, but when it's done, you get a beautiful scene. If I'm trying to take one during the daytime, I want to put an ND or neutral density filter on to darken things, and again, put it on a tripod, set the f-stop pretty high. Be careful not to set it too high in that situation. But because of the ND filter, it's going to take a longer exposure, and you want a good 10-15 second exposure to blur out those people. Try adding additional ND filters to get a longer exposure, again, just to blur out, and see the effect and see what happens. I think you'll really like it. Well, if you ever tried taking firework photographs, you find out that a lot of times they just don't work out kind of like you want it, and they lose the overall vibrancy and everything else. Well, I want to encourage you to, again, use a tripod, put the camera on the tripod, and use B or bulb mode, which allows you to control how long the actual shutter remains open. Use a handheld device so that you can actually control using your hand or some kind of remote control device without touching the camera how long the camera remains open. And you want it to remain open for 1 or 2 of the fireworks to go off. Don't leave it too long, otherwise you lose the colors. 10-15 seconds. Try it a few times until you get it right. But by taking that and having several fireworks go off, you fill the scene, you get more color, and it looks so much better. If they're doing it over water, it is awesome because you can get the reflection again off the water, and it looks really beautiful. So hold the camera open, the shutter open, using the bulb mode, using some kind of remote control for, again, 10-15 seconds. Release it so that you capture 2 to 3 fireworks going off. Don't let them go off too long. Again, trial and error will make this perfect for you, but you'll find that you get a more full, complete picture by allowing 2 or 3 to go off. A lot of time we don't think as creative as we can, and I want to encourage you in photography to start thinking creative and using certain lenses so that the background helps tell the story, but you blur out the background and focus the attention on the foreground, but let the background add to the picture. Such as this one, we see the pregnant lady in the background, and we see the babies written out up front. There's so many images you can take where you can use the background to enhance the foreground, but blur out the background. So just think creative. Use a lens, either go in close on the baby blocks so that they're in focus, and you use a very shallow depth of focus with a low f-stop to create something creative like this. Catch a reflection. I love mirrors. I encourage you to try and play around and have fun with mirrors. Be careful not to see yourself in the mirror, be caught in the mirror, but play around. Mirrors can do great things. And in this situation, the mirror actually captured lighting to help brighten up the flowers, because otherwise if I'd gone in close with the flowers, the bottom part typically would be dark. But by using the mirror, it actually brightens it up, and in my opinion, gives you a different image that's kind of fun. So use mirrors. I use mirrors for portraits. I use mirrors for a lot of things, and I want to capture that reflection, and I use that. It also is a great reflector for light and helps to brighten up what often would be dark, shadowed areas. When we're doing wedding photography, one of the things I really try to get across with the people that work with me is change the angle. So often we just put the camera at our eye level and we keep shooting. Changing the angle can change the whole image, change the story, and get you to see a totally different perspective. Go down, get down low. So you actually change the horizon, and you'll find you just get a totally different story, a totally different feel to the picture. So go up high, get up in a chair, try different angles on the picture, and see if that angle, that new angle, really creates a different perspective that you like. Again, with digital photography, you could try a lot of things and delete them, but I encourage you to try shooting both photography and videography at different angles. I hope this lesson, while it only contains simple steps, makes a big difference for you. We'll put together in the future another lesson where we'll look at other simple steps you can do, but I hope that these very simple steps can make a dramatic difference and open a whole new creative world with your photography. If you have questions, want additional information, please contact us. Thank you and have a wonderful day.